McCartney needs to win and will do anything he can to secure the right to misrepresent reality because the stakes are very high. The crime he's committed is unbelievably serious. So, what he's done is first, he's demonstrated the plastic reality in Hollywood can depict anything they want and nobody can stop them. Then he's taken control of the media for interrogation and used endless invasions of privacy and saying that what motivates them is to investigate the murder of John Lennon. But I think a little common sense can show you that what they're actually doing is avenging the military. They're saying conscientious objection should be subject to the penalty of invasive psychiatry, misrepresenting what Woody Allen calls the interior dimension of the person's life. They wanted to create a situation where a child's objection to the draft made them to blame for a genocide. Yeah, and it's hard to see how you can blame a child for a genocide, but they've done that. They've come after me and blamed me for a genocide in order to help the people who did it. In other words, they blame me because it didn't happen, and that's what McCartney means by people are weird, and even doesn't matter if he's wrong, he's right, because nobody's going to try to stop him. And he needs something plausible. And what he mongered was this woman named Claire. Okay. He sets me up with this hottie, and he says, it was therapy because I was a rapist. Claire said that I exhibited all of the mindset of a rapist, and which was obviously false. I was invited to read a poem at the Girls for Guns exhibit by Sarah Becker, who knew the situation from Leslie Katz. He knew that I would never do anything invasive of a woman's right to privacy. I would never do the opposite of psychology of a rapist. But Claire claimed that she had been raped and that it was by somebody like me. And they had somebody at Harvard working with this NEVA Federation who Carnegie Mellon hired. Martin Edelman was best friends with from Wells Fargo, as he was with Leslie Katz. And Martin Edelman would go around going, no, stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. That's a joke about women. Now, this was the focal point, and he was coaching Leslie Katz. He'd known her since she was a little girl. And Tom Gordon gets all wrapped up in the storyline at Harvard, which was never corroborated. He said that the women of the ad board saw it his way that he had committed rape. It was all set up as a NEVA corporation dialogue from their attorneys to overdub on what Claire was saying, which was that I was confused. And they had this woman who dated Donald Gordon saying how she loved the thunder and heat and passions. And so this was going into the rejection computer, and I was just writing poems using those kinds of phrases to paint the picture of the Guernica that the Jewish community had surrounded me with, because that's what all of this is. It's like a picture of Guernica. And then Paul McCartney comes and says, well, your Guernica belongs to me because you're to blame for the murder of John Lennon. And he has Gail Burson's lookalikes on the cover of his records in downtown Seattle. And he's ripping off the museum with John Shulman. And he's taking letters they planted on me that they were all ready to co-produce. And they know that I knew nothing in a million years about it. Anything pertaining to connecting me to John Lennon. I was just a little backwater Pittsburgh kid in a world of billions of people. And John Lennon was in the Kremlinopolis of New York City with the Croquet Register Corona. And I'm supposed to know or even believe them about any of the stuff when they say that I should have known that a 12-year-old Jewish girl was going to kill John Lennon Therefore, I'm to blame. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all, but the reason is because I penetrated their Guernica and he wants to confiscate it. Truth is, my work is my work, and I had nothing to do with it. If he says it's his work because I had something to do with it, he desperately needs to prove that, and so he does it by refraction. That's why he killed Circe by refraction. Refraction is the name of the game with these people. They refract the idea that Claire was raped by someone who worked, who sounded like a person who was detecting Neva Corporation attorney defense for their dialogue machine and genocide porno, who would never harm anybody for any reason. And this makes sense to his damaged ideas of reality. And Paul McCartney is a deviant, damaged person. But he has Barack Obama, Benny and the Jets, Trumpy tune, all saying Jimmy must go, because we want his Guernica, it's ours. And we want to give it, it's genocide for charity, they say. We committed this genocide and gave you to them as a sacrifice, as a form of charity. See how generous they are? And they lied about every detail. So, the rabbit he pulls from the hat is this girl who claims that Jimmy Cray, she called me the madness of King George. When, because they had, so I'll show you how they had it set up. Okay, Evangelia Karmas, that's the name they use, Avenging Angel of Karma, which, seriously got Evangelia Karmas. From what I gather, the COVID victims in Italy got Evangelia Karmas. So they have this set up for Evangelia Karmas. She needs time for herself from Giuseppe. Get that name, Giuseppe. Epi. And he moans and cries, does she love me anymore? But he's like Zorba the Greek. He endures his pain. And they explain all of this to me. They told me what was up. And Rosa goes out in a Pittsburgh mafia that is notorious for two-timing me. I mean, I won't even tell you how sinister it was, the way they two-timed me. And leaves me fearing that she, because I had a neurotrauma that was causing seizures, that she was going to abandon me and the people who started AIDS were going to get away. And it turns out that's exactly what she was up to. It's exactly what she was up to. And she comes, you do not trust me. You do not trust me. And rejects me. And so Claire says, he's the madness of King George. And they don't bother to explain. Why would they put an innocent girl who's never had a lover before at all, who admitted to Mariners baseball that I gave her goosebumps, I was so tender to her, in the bed of what they said was rapists, for Claire, who's making movies, Licky Chops movies. They raped Jeannie and then put my name in Asians called Cinema. Not a few days after somebody came out of the Carnegie, 2 doors away from where John Schulman was stealing books from the Carnegie, and asked Jeannie if he could make a film of her. She said no, but then she gets raped, and my name turns into Asian cult cinema. She's Korean, right? They're ripping off the museum. What else did Claire do? She makes an Evangelia Karmas rape movie for museum thieves. And McCartney says it's his Guernica because of something he impinged with Greg Starsenik on a completely helpless, innocent person. It's his estate that should be taken and given to charity, to his genocide victims, in my opinion. Because the evidence, when you look at it, shows that John Lennon pulled a Houdini. This was all an absurd trick by Woody Allen and his gangsters in Hollywood. It's just an absurd trick. And it's just the things that they call morality to them are just the lick spittle leftovers of stage props that they use for this version of Jaws. I mean, it's creepy. Where do you get these creepy people? And yet you put a Congress, congressional committee, and call them Benny and the Jets. It looks like to me. You're loyal only to these disgusting sadists from from Britain's super pimpery, and you allow them to shoot up a children's school, as though that's not their ideology. And Claire says it's because somebody who knew nothing about was just trying to detect what they were doing from what they were saying was like somebody who raped her. It's the bizarrest thing I've ever heard. Even after Leslie got her letter, she came over to my house and introduced me to people and even made out with me. So it's the whole thing. Her mother was giving me rides home from the University of Pittsburgh. If Pitt took any of this seriously, why did they recommend I see a psychologist as a condition of employment? And then they invite John Bolton to be the first foreign policy speaker on their new show. It's the bizarrest thing I've ever heard of. And yet it's mainstream with them. It's like an absolute necessity that they must see the whole thing through, that it must never be questioned.